we'll discuss it during the meeting, and there will be another opportunity to post something for the public to comment. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good, really?
Yeah.
It might be morning till we're out of here, you never know.
Oh, come on, this agenda looks good.
Shh, don't jinx it.
You know,
good. Good evening. We will call to order this public hearing regarding the pedestrian facilities master plan to order. I would invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, this is a public hearing for our pedestrian facilities master plan. Does any members of the public wish to speak to council on said plan? I see one name. No pressure. Would you like to speak to council on this? Very good. Please, Ms. Schrader. Schroeder? Schrader?
Schrader.
Schrader, I got it right the first time.
Well done.
My name is Stephanie Schrader. I live at the corner of Hauserville Road and Spring Leah Drive, across from the entrance to Spring Creek Park. I did submit a letter, my husband and I did, to council. I don't know if you were able to read that before the meeting, but I would just like to make it known for the record that my husband and I are opposed to the sidewalks in our neighborhood. I did attend the public open house regarding the sidewalks, and I was told at that meeting that the engineer would be the one to decide which side of the street or both sides of the street, where the sidewalks would go, pretty much. So I'm asking council to maybe take into consideration removing Hauserville Road and Spring Lee Drive from your master plan at this time until maybe the engineer could give us, the residents of Hauserville, some more information on where those sidewalks would go. That was what I would hope to happen. But also, I hope council takes into consideration, and I know there's a lot of barriers, and that was on the maps that were provided at the open house. I hope that council takes into consideration the environmental impacts that this would have. For example, I live right across the street from Spring Creek Park, and I love the farmer's field. We have a lot of nature, a lot of deer, a lot of wildlife, and also my maple tree is like the entrance to Hauserville, and I would hate to see it be destroyed by sidewalks or things of that nature. I know council is probably very, very concerned about the safety of the bicyclists and the pedestrians walking to Spring Creek Park, I'm sorry. And I think we're all concerned about that, but I feel that maybe the highest priority would be to control the speeding on Hauserville Road first. If there's some way that you can look into doing that, that would be greatly appreciated. I feel if you put sidewalks on Hauserville Road, that may only encourage motorists to speed more, and already we have a speeding issue. So I live right where the speed limit changes from 35 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. And there's been many instances in the past where that's just absolutely ignored, very much ignored. And we had the speed limit sign on our property, but I don't know if there's a way that maybe you could bring that back. I'm more than willing to have it on my lawn again if that's an option. So I just wanted to say that as well. But thank you. I appreciate you letting me speak. And I hope you'll take into consideration maybe removing Hauserville and Spring Lee Drive from the master plan until we can have some more details about that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That exhausts our people in the room. Do we have anybody online that wishes to speak during the public hearing?
No, doesn't look like it.
Seeing nor hearing any, at this point, we could adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Yes, I second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now call to order the regular meeting of the College Township Council. At this point, we'll open it for public open discussion of anything not on this evening's agenda. Seeing nor hearing any, do any members of council have any potential new agenda items for this evening? Seeing nor hearing any, we will move to plans. P1, Arise Federal Credit Union Sketch Plan. Lindsay, are you leading us out with this?
Yeah, sure. Mark Toretti is here tonight to present a sketch plan for the Arise Federal Credit Union. He presented this to the Planning Commission on Tuesday evening.
Yes, and also here's Jason Straley of Arise Federal Credit Union. He's on the Zoom call there. So this is the property that was divided for the Stalker subdivision. We put the auto body shop in the back, and then the front lot abuts Benner Pike, and that was the front corner of it. And Rise Federal Credit Union is looking at putting and basically it'll be a main office, plus there'll also be a bank facility there. It's basically 11,300 square feet. About 2,400 of it will be for retail bank space, and the rest will be for their office on there. Yeah, here, the plan is up on the screen there now. There, I think that shows it pretty good. You recall, basically, if I need my thing to work here. There we go. Now, let me see.
Here's another one, Mark, if you need it.
I'm sorry.
I have another one here.
Oh, it's working
Oh, you
now.
got it?
Okay, yeah, this is Benner Pike, this is Ellis Place. This was the Premier Drive extension where the Stalker Auto Body Shop is right above it in that property. The whole area was designed with regards to stormwater. There's several stormwater basins that are required on this property. They'll take care of this development on Lot 3B, which is what this here is, along with Stalker Auto Body. As you recall from the Stalker's land development plan and subdivision plan, this sidewalk was required for the subdivision plan, and then the sidewalk along Benner Pike was deferred until this property is developed. And so we're looking at that, and there'll be a sidewalk along the developed area of the Benner Pike. What we've shown here is their facility. I said it's 2 stories, 11,300 square feet. We are having the main access off of Ellis Place. There will be 3 drive-through lanes, an ATM drive-through close to the building, and then 2 teller service drive-throughs beyond that, and 1 bypass lane to go around that. The main entrance for the bank is at the front corner of the building, so they're looking for some visibility, have access, from people coming along the Benner Pike to be able to see that. And we have a total of 39 parking spaces in the front of the building, and then 4 on the back, angled parking, where we have the one-way circulation around the building back out. We are proposing a right-in, right-out entrance exit along the Benner Pike to go in, to go out. The traffic consultant has submitted a traffic impact study scoping meeting to PennDOT to see if a traffic study will be needed or not. So we'll see what PennDOT says on that, if a study will be required or not, so we'll find out where that goes on there. This ultimately will be a shared access for the future development of this property over here. We're planning on having that access and have that be shared. Also, Rise, I know that they have a facility down in Huntington, and what they're planning to do here also is they are planning a solar array on their site to power, basically to provide the power for the building, to operate the building. They need approximately 10,000 square feet of area for the solar array. This is what we're looking at right now, is the area right here. That's approximately 10,000 square feet. The solar arrays can't be within any of the front building setbacks unless it's fully screened. So they may look at extending it out closer to Premier Drive extension, but then they definitely need to fully screen it. But the designer for the solar array system is looking at this now, so we'll get an exact layout as we proceed on there. But that would be part of the land development plan also, would be for that. We're also planning, we looked at it for this property, but with the layout of the drive-through and everything, it didn't work well. But whenever we design and we grade this here out, ultimately to grade to make sure that there would be a potential access from Premier Drive out here for when the remaining part of this lot gets developed, that could come, they could also access off of Premier Drive, as well as this right-in, right-out entrance on there. Horizon isn't sure if they're going to subdivide this in the future or still leave it as one lot on there. That's something that their main concern right now is just getting their facility approved and built at the moment, but that's something that could come into play in the future, and we're trying to plan ahead for different things for that. But in general, that's a brief summary of what we're looking at, and just wanted to get in front of you here, the sketch plan. These are some of the renderings of the building. This is from the back corner. You can see the drive-through lanes. Benner Pike would be out there. You can flip through the other ones. Yeah, this is looking off from Ellis Place. You'd be coming in, drive-through lanes. There's the front of the building. And this here would be out from the front of the corner of Ellis Place and Benner Pike. They're going to be looking on their signage. There's signage already out at the front that Christ Community Church has the LED lit sign, and there's an easement for them for that use. It's also an agreement to have shared use with this lot and the Stalker Auto Body lot. So they're going to talk to them about that, or actually putting them, they can have additional monument sign along Ellis Place, so they'll be looking at that possibly. But that's a brief summary of it. Just want to get that in front of you and get any initial comments.
Very good. Comments from council. We'll start far right here. Anything? Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, too.
Yeah.
The right-in, right-out on Benner is being shown because you anticipate that that's all that will be, you'll get permitted for?
Yeah, with the entrance at Ellis Place here,
Right.
I know that PennDOT's not going to want another full access, right, a couple hundred feet down from there.
Okay, then the second question, if you don't subdivide and you come in with the plan for the rest of the property, does that mean the rest of to the left there, whatever direction that is, west?
Yeah, over here, yeah.
Does that mean that whatever goes on that site isn't necessarily guaranteed access by right to Benner Pike? If you don't?
It will be from you'll have access
Right.
here, but
So-
what else we're looking at,
That would be considered.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, if you don't subdivide, that's the one right.
Yeah.
That's one access by right that you have for that
Yeah.
entire parcel.
yeah.
Okay, then that leads to my third comment. Is there a way to design that pork chop so that folks can't physically make a left turn in there coming from the mall?
I think that's impossible. The Sheets one out,
Yeah.
that one was designed to make sure that nobody did, and people do it. And that one's a hard one. And I overlaid that actually on here, and that actually goes up to this point. It would not actually fit in this area here. On one thing with the Planning Commission that we're going to do is we're going to try to extend this island up further. We're going to open it up a little bit more so it's more easier directional coming in, and hopefully extend an island up to help divide it part of the way up in there, just to channel them in there. But regarding, you've seen, everybody's seen it there at
But,
that.
so you know where I'm coming from.
Yes, I know where you're coming from.
If you develop that site and that's the access, nobody's gonna go down to Ellis Place.
Yeah.
Make a left,
Yeah.
and make a left.
Yeah.
They're all gonna make an
Yeah, and it may,
improper.
like he says, that's, if that's subdivided, they may be able to get another access further down. Right now, we haven't.
That access will likely be right in and right out, but
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that.
Okay.
But like I said, we are also planning for an access off of Premier Drive, just as another way out. I looked at that for this, but it would actually, a straight line through would actually probably create a cut through that I didn't want to do either. So, if anything would come in the future, it would be offset, so it wouldn't be an easy cut through going through there.
I mean, it could be worse. We
Yeah.
could have a Chick-fil-A situation.
Yeah.
We only have a sheet situation, so.
Yeah, so.
Just anything you could do design-wise to
Yeah.
discourage that by design would
It's-
be
yeah.
appreciated.
I mean,
Thanks.
for, I know, for how, if you look at, in the design of how large and how angled the one is at Sheets, and it's still done, I mean, it's just, and in the meantime, you gotta provide enough opening to get vehicles and like even delivery trucks or garbage trucks in and out there, so it's gotta be that, wide enough for that, so, yeah.
That's it for me, Rich.
Very good. Mr. Takei.
That was all
Okay. Carla?
Yeah, I guess this is more of a design plan question, or just maybe a comment. Why the solar array beside the building instead of on the building? Is that, I guess I'm curious, that seems, we can ask the gentleman on the call. I'm just wondering if there's something in our ordinance that makes that easier, because if that's the case, then.
Yeah, well, I know that they needed 10,000 square foot area, which you want to get on the roof for that, because they pretty much want to power it by solar, not just a little supplement, they want to power it by
Sure.
solar. And so, they will have a backup with regular power, but that's what they did down in Huntington, and I think they're trying to do the same thing here. But on the area that they said they needed, it was that large, so.
Right, we just have the already impervious, and I know solar's not impervious,
Yeah.
but it's also, it's middle ground, right?
Yeah.
So, you see a big parking lot and a parking lot all the way around the building. There's lots of places for, I don't know, covered parking. Like, you could do it ingenuitively and it would look more genuinely, environmentally thoughtful than a giant array beside the building. I'm just throwing that out.
Yes.
Yeah, just throwing that out
Okay,
as a
yeah.
comment. Obviously, it doesn't hinge on approval or anything,
Yeah.
but my initial thoughts on it. Thanks, that's it.
Dustin?
I did want to ask one question to Eric first. Is pork chop a technical term for that?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right.
Industry standard.
Industry standard, all right, got it. I was curious if there was any comments from the planning commission around the form-based code, any discussion about that, moving ahead, I was just curious about that, okay,
No, actually, that didn't come up,
okay,
to be honest, so.
interesting.
Because this is about as far away from
Yeah,
form-based
that was
code.
far away. That's
Yeah.
what I'm getting at. This is really definitely not down the track we want to go to eventually with the form-based code and, being in that area. So that really is my only comment is, if there's any way we can nudge towards what we think might be that way for something like this, that'd be kind of cool.
If I may.
Please.
That leads to the next question. How soon would your client be looking to submit?
How soon are you looking at?
And the games begin.
That was an interesting sentence.
You go to word with the code you got.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just curious.
Very soon. Yeah.
Before that is done.
Anything
I'll
else,
remember
Dustin?
that.
That's all. Oh, wait,
I think is that a flag?
I guess this would be a PennDOT decision whether or not a traffic signal needs to be at Ellis Place? Okay.
Yeah, like I said, we're getting the process started with them. It's called a traffic impact study scoping meeting application that the traffic engineer filled all this information out about the traffic counts, trips, et cetera, and sends that to PennDOT and to the township's traffic consultant. They review it and see if a study is needed or an analysis, and then if so, what the scope of that would be. So that's where that is right now.
Question, so obviously, or I assume this is replacing the existing branch.
Yeah, I would assume too, Jason.
Right.
muted if
And,
you
and so, and then also, is this to supplement the South, or Science Park, location, or?
Let's see if Jason can get on here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why we can't hear him.
Hold on.
Hold on, let me see.
You may be on mute, Jason, check and see.
No, it's-
No, that's us.
Okay.
Sorry, Jason.
Hold on.
Where's the existing?
well,
I got a red light on this side.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah,
Hello.
to the light dimmers.
Like that?
Like that?
I think you have to,
Still
oh,
not
no.
Yeah, it's on the computer speaker.
Yeah, you gotta switch
So we
to
need to
that.
do to
Yeah.
this one?
Oh, actually, I
Sure.
don't see it up there. Oh, the
There.
top one, yeah.
Try it now, Jason.
Try talking now.
It's been acting up. There we go.
Can you
There's the
try
beeping.
again?
Working.
Right?
There we go.
Yay. Is that working a little bit better now?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
I don't hear you guys at all now.
Good job, Jen. Nicely done.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I hear you now. Everyone's back. Hi. Yeah, to answer the question, the audio was cutting in and out a little bit, but I do believe I heard parts of the question was on the existing location in Science Park into this. Yes, the Arise is looking to relocate. This would be their main office and retail branch on the main floor. Offices on the secondary floor of that. They are proposing to still keep a branch looking in the Science Park area too. They're looking to have a branch over in that area, but they would be moving completely here to this site. And there was that comment before about the solar array field. We can put that into consideration, but the Arise Credit Union is very committed to green energy, and this was very important to them at another location, a project we worked with them on a new branch in Huntington, PA, and they wanted to incorporate that solar field and have the building with solar energy, so they were looking to possibly do the same here.
Excellent, thank you. Really appreciate the sidewalks showing there, Mark.
Gold star.
One thing we're looking at doing, like I know talking to staff and the planning commission, is add some gradual curves in them and maybe extend some of the planting on some of the sides of it, so it's just not a straight shot with that. And if we're able to do that, I'd like to, then I'll probably be asking for a deferral for past the other side of the pork chop, depending upon what goes in there, that could be continued in a similar fashion. So that's, if I get that to work out well, because then I'd rather wait till whatever goes in on the other side and design something that works with that site same way.
But you have it there now.
Yes.
Well done.
Can I ask a follow-up
Please.
to that? Is that to more align with the topography in
No,
your mind,
just-
or just sort of a walking experience?
Yeah, kind
Are
of
you
a
getting-
walking experience. I know.
Getting creative.
Talking to staff and even the planning commission, rather than this just straight long shot, and just to give it a little more of an experience, that was all.
We also discussed it possibly being a shared use path out front.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than a sidewalk,
Oh,
and
that
on
would be
staff
cool.
level.
That would probably get you there.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
That would, potentially a shared use path as opposed to just sidewalk along the front. That might get you consideration on something. But, yeah, I really don't have anything. It's pretty straight up. We were running short on banks, so I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see that we're making sure that we got that block checked.
Okay.
Anything else, staff, anything else to offer? We really appreciate the sketch plan, coming at us with the
Yeah.
sketch plan.
Always.
Yeah,
Yep, very much appreciated.
I enjoyed the process too. I think that works out better, and glad to get your initial input on that. So.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, reports, manager's update.
Okay, a couple of items. While it was not highlighted, I did want to give a quick update on Pike Street. Work is continuing over the last several days. Primarily, work has been commencing on sidewalks, and actually have made very good progress through today. At the moment, it appears as if we will finish all paving very early next week. That does kind of seem to be getting pushed and pushed, but we're nearing the the point of no return as far as the available working season for that. So I am expecting actually that by Thanksgiving that everything will be open with the exception of the parking stalls on the Mays Memorial side of the street. I think there's still some work there that they're finishing up. But I do expect everything else to be finished as far as paving and open to the public with barriers removed. So stay tuned. We've talked about here even tonight with respect to form-based code. The selected firm, DPZ, has submitted their contract for review. Staff has reviewed that. I still need to go through that, but the solicitor has reviewed that. And our intention is to get that contract back in front of the selection committee for a quick review, take into consideration their comments, and then provide a set of formal comments back to council for your consideration, likely the second meeting of December. I would like to see us be in a position where we could actually make an award of the contract for the Dale Summit area plan and the form-based code work before the end of this year. And while what we saw here just now is in compliance and has been designed in accordance with our existing zoning, I don't know that it would meet the standards that would be forthcoming with respect to a form-based code. And actually, this raises an interesting point. We have had contact with a developer for a potentially sizable project in an area that is presently zoned in accordance with our ordinance. But given the nature of that, which would be combined residential and commercial, we want to begin working immediately with DPZ and try to develop the standards that will be required as either a demonstration area or a demonstration project or a catalyst project?
Yeah,
Thank you.
catalyst.
As the catalyst project. So I think that it's important for us, when the time comes later next month, to be in a position to make the award. So there is some, I don't want to call it urgency, but I think that there is an opportunity that, to be fair, I don't think that the township would want to miss in this particular case, should this actually move forward. And while we don't have a lot of details, there's a lot of promise there. So I did want to make sure that I mentioned that, and I hope I didn't steal your thunder, Lindsay.
Nope, steal away. I'm excited though.
Solar power purchasing agreement, those interviews continue. There was a solar power purchase committee meeting earlier this week. Now I understand that that was primarily to make sure that things were on track. I believe that everybody is aware of the council decision that was taken at our last meeting with respect to the LTAC recommendation for
the Center Hills Village neighborhood with respect to speed humps. So there will be a forthcoming vote from the neighborhood concerning that, and that looks to be going to be held in January. The Spring Creek Park Master Plan was presented last meeting. We'll be taking some final action through the consent agenda tonight with respect to accepting that particular study formally. And with respect to Thompson Woods Preserve, we are slowly gathering the participants as outlined in the memorandum of agreement with State College Borough for both the governance committee as well as the advisory committee. We've had several of the identified organizations that are to provide representation through and on the advisory committee provide us with names of those that will be serving in that capacity. And just as a reminder, in addition to all other vacancies that council will be considering here in the near future that we have in our ABCs for volunteers, we are going to need to appoint 2 volunteers to the Thompson Woods Governance Committee. So be keeping any candidates that you might come across in your conversations with constituents in mind for good candidates for those positions. I think as has been reported earlier, the MTF grant application for the Path to Campus has been submitted. The CFA awards that were scheduled to be announced on the 14th of November were not in fact announced at that time, but we're expecting those any day. So stay tuned. One of these grants may be superfluous, so we'll find out. And the last item that I had was that there was no Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board action on their agenda and for anything related to the SC Gaming. So that is the manager's report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the manager? Eric?
2, thanks. Pike Street, it had to be those 2 parking spots, didn't it?
Apparently so.
It won't be a long delay, right? For those 2 parking spots?
Well, no. Actually, the property owner is aware, and my understanding, if I'm thinking about the same 2, the proper 2 parking lots, I don't think there's a problem.
Okay. Just cruel irony. The Lamont newsletter that just came out the other day, last week, it seemed to indicate, has anyone else read it? You know, my question is, the trees that were spec'd for that project are the same size caliper we would spec for any other project?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. I didn't think we shorted anyone there. I wish it would have been worded a little bit differently, that if they want to upgrade the trees that come, as opposed to, do you actually want normal size trees versus those ones the township was planning to put in. It struck me as a little unfair the way it was worded, but I just wanted to make clear that that's standard operating procedure.
Yeah. Inch to 2 inch, inch and a half to 2 inch caliper is typically, right, Amy? Those are our typical street tree standards. That's what was spec'd for this job, and that's what they would be. I mean, they're obviously what they are replacing, what had been there. There's no comparison. I mean, those were very old trees, and very well established. It'll take any number of years for anything new to be planted to reach the same.
Yeah, I watched them come down. But to be fair, I think with the way they're going about it is pretty creative. The individual sponsors who want to sponsor a large tree, you can get a plaque. It's actually a pretty neat idea. So I think where we're going, where the project's going, is wonderful. Just wanted to be clear that where we started. That's all I had, Rich.
Very good. Any other questions for the manager?
Yeah,
Dustin.
while we're still on Pike Street, so My understanding was that Berry Alley being one-way traffic was part of, because of Pike Street, right? So I just wanted to clarify just for the general public, because there's questions going around whether, some folks wanted to stay one-way, some folks wanted to go back to two-way. I just wanted, to air it out here and what the plan is.
Well, that question will be coming back to council either in December or in January. We're starting to, as is presented tonight in the correspondence, we're starting to receive correspondence. I understand that there are petitions that are out and about, especially within the Nittany Orchards neighborhood, pertaining to this particular question. I have recommended that folks get letters, get their petitions in so that council can consider this before the end of the year at this point in time.
But what was the original plan?
The original plan was we were going to revisit
Just to revisit?
revisit that question once the project was completed.
Okay.
Right, it would stay one way
It
until.
would stay one way until
completion
council
of the project.
made another decision, one way or the other.
Oh, no pun intended. Okay.
I just have to make it quick. I sat and had coffee at Cafe Lamont, and I was there for an hour. I saw at least a dozen people still going the wrong way. Delivery trucks intersecting with catabuses. It was a mess. Unbelievable. I can't wait till that goes away.
Yep.
The
It is-
one-way goes away?
The one-way on Pike Street goes away.
Oh, the
because-
one-way on Pike Street goes.
Yes,
Okay.
not Barry.
Catabuses are not very alley.
Sorry. No, I was back to Pike
Hey, you
Street.
said Catabus, I thought. That'd be a tough.
Even the catabuses have
It's
to
been
get
a
their
long
mail.
week, guys,
Yeah.
but no, Pike Street is unbelievable. I could not believe that
It
there
has
were
been
big trucks going the wrong way. on
Extremely
Pike Street.
challenging project.
The public has spoken.
It has been incredibly difficult. I think, the contractor made a few mistakes with respect to some of the excavation work that was being done. That ultimately ended up being corrected, but just generally the conditions, given the traffic, given the tight quarters, it was a very difficult construction project. And I think all of us are going to be very happy when it's finally completed. But it was, we have had enforcement activity out there on any number of occasions. And there have been citations that have been written, but they're not there all the time, and this stuff happens. It has been a mess.
Agreed.
Here, here.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the
I
manager?
drive through it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. COG Regional County and Liaison Reports. Carla submitted a written from the CAS. Any questions to Carla on that? Anything that you want to especially draw our attention to on that?
No, just an announcement that, I guess for the listening public, refuse and recycling rate adjustment is coming up for the new year. It unfortunately cannot be avoided due to tipping fees increased and staff wage, like driver wage increases to keep our drivers. And gas, of course.
Sure.
So we're looking at an increase from the regular service costing $20.19 up to $23.38. You can see that there's a MOU process adjustment coming up for when rates do change, which is a normal part of the contract for refuse and recycling. I just want to make sure that everybody saw that and there's no heartburn. Manager, I'm sure that went before the manager's meeting at some point. No? No? Okay, well, okay. So, yeah, and then there will be a survey for refuse and recycling, which has traditionally come out with our bills, but that return rate was pretty low traditionally, and it costs a lot to send those out. It's a
To
lot of
fund the
paper.
survey? It costs a lot to do the survey?
To send, to print them and send them. The company that bills us doesn't pay for any of that. Like, we make those and print them on the paper, and it's about a 3-page survey, so 3 or 4-page survey. So, they've decided to try digital, primarily digital, so there will be paper copies at different municipalities, and of course at CCRA, but and at COG, but everything else will be a scan or a link to an online survey. You look concerned.
If you're a customer, in your bill, you'll see a link to a survey? Is
Yeah.
that- Okay.
Yeah.
I was just trying to understand.
No, actually, that's a good question. I don't think it'll be in your bill. It'll be in the newsletter that gets sent out already. So,
Send a CCR.
yeah, that CCRA fold we get that has like, what to recycle, here's the update, the link.
Does that get mailed to everybody, all the customers?
All the customers, yeah. So instead of sending 4 extra pages with that,
Oh, the
we're going-
paper survey will be included in that?
No.
The
that's-
link will be in the paper?
Right,
Okay.
right.
In the
Sorry,
newsletter.
I'm being vague.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay, yeah. So I also attended a meeting for the Millbrook Marsh Nature Center Boardwalk kind of feasibility plan. So part 2 of the feasibility study has been completed, or almost completed, I guess, by Land Associates. The quote that that has come back to us is a bit breathtaking, but let's just hold our judgment a little longer. I think we're going to, looks like, maybe try to massage some of those numbers, kind of, get our feet back under us and take a more solid look before we lose our breakfast. How was that? Was that good, Amy? That was pretty good.
That wrapped it up, yes.
Thanks. That was it for me.
Okay. Dustin, you've had a couple.
Yeah, a lot of Parks Capital activity, no HR activity. So Parks Capital had an 11 November meeting, joint meeting with the Center Region Parks Authority. Everything was a discussion item was on the agenda. As you know, Rich, we got a Parks and Rec Governance Special Committee status report by yours truly, Rich Frank. He did a great job. And then, so on the agenda, all discussion items were that. We were supposed to discuss capital improvement project status of Whitehall Road. That was deferred to a special meeting that was just this week that both Eric and Rich and I got to attend as well. We were supposed to get an update on Spring Creek Education Building, Phase 2, and the Diane Curley Welcome Pavilion. We got a little bit there, but staff really wasn't ready to give us too much of an update. And then we did get an update on the Millbrook Marsh Nature Center Part 2 Boardwalk feasibility study, as Carla went into. But I will say that, this was about a 2-hour meeting in duration, and most of the discussion evolved or devolved into governance issues and talks and things like that. There was a lot of discussion. Just a lot of discussion, yeah. Anything you got to add, guys, that attended that? And then again, the special meeting, and I'll let you guys cover any points on that. That's it.
Yeah, I'd only offer, unfortunately, I don't think it's stuck to the agenda real well.
No.
But yes, there was a lot of verbiage, so. Eric's had a couple meetings too.
They were both on the same day.
Huh.
So the special meeting that Dustin referred to, Adam, were you online?
I was.
Okay, so really Carla's the only one who didn't get to enjoy that. Oh, and Paul,
And me.
sorry.
I actually listened. Was that the one I listened to a little bit of?
It was Monday?
I'm not sure.
I bopped in.
Tuesday, right?
No, it's the
Oh, I
15th.
missed you. I didn't-
Tuesday.
I
It was
didn't
Tuesday.
realize you bopped in.
No,
It was
then it was a
Tuesday
different
morning.
one.
Tuesday morning, 8:30 to 10:30.
It was a different one.
Oh.
Yeah. Lucy,
That was
Parks Authority,
Dustin's.
Parks
Oh.
Capital, yeah.
You know,
Same topic.
basically the same.
I think it's safe to say that despite the angst leading up to the meeting, I thought the meeting was as productive as could have been expected. And a lot of that credit goes, I believe, as I noted in my brief report, to staff for the way they formatted and parsed the information into the 4 categories, and the way, with the help of the chair, the way he structured the meeting, and the way staff walked through each one of those, and the way we took only questions on those individual subjects, I think led for a very productive Q&A, and in the end, a very educational experience for the 3 committees. And that's all well and good, but did it answer our questions and concerns? And I believe that it did, as best as we could have expected. You know, they addressed them almost one by one, and you saw my report, and I offered comment at the end, and apparently that viewpoint was shared by all the members of all the committees except for one. Because when the motion was made to keep the project moving forward, which is what the residents of the Center Region want, the votes were unanimous in 2 of the 3 committees, with only 1 nay vote in one of the committees. So kudos to staff for pulling this together, you know, after some mistakes were made, maybe some bad calls, and I believe to Chair Frank, for the way he managed what could have been, which was a challenging meeting, trying to get all 3 committees together and to walk through, you know, a sensitive subject. So that was the first of the 2 meetings.
Maybe share what the recommendation was.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll just read this out of my report. After that, a motion was made to recommend to the exec committee and general forum to authorize $578,974 in funds be released from the restricted loan funds for the park to ensure payments to contractors and keep the project moving forward. The motion passed unanimously in facilities with only 1 dissenting vote in Parks Capital. And of course, the authority didn't need to take action, but I think based on the commentary, everybody there was in favor.
Actually, they did.
Did they take formal action?
Yeah, so, and that actually came up today, was thrown out in the Finance Committee meeting as whether, how we approached that was handled. So what occurred, I called Parks Capital and Facilities to order as the chair of COG. And then Kathy Madison called the authority to order and turned her group over to me at that point. And then we moved forward, the 3 bodies together, all the way through the motion. And so the motion did pass 16-1.
At Finance?
No,
Or
no,
exec?
no, at the joint meeting between Parks Capital.
Oh, yeah, okay, Tuesday's meeting.
Facility, Parks Capital, and the authority. The motion passed 16-1. It was actually made by a member of actually he's a member of the Parks Capital and the authority.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, he was wearing 2 hats.
yeah. So, but we only counted him, I think we only counted him once in the vote. But just so that council has an idea, that 578 number, 578,000 number, what that does, it represents 8.85% of the project, the total project cost. And when added with the original 75,000, which was 1.15, it gives you a total of a 10% contingency. If you recall, there's 816,000 remaining available on the refinancing from last year. There was discussion about just move the whole amount forward, and that came up this morning in facilities as well. or finance as well. But it was kind of like, I kind of said, there's a reason that we didn't advance the 9 million, the full 9 million previously. Same's true here. So what that accomplishes, from what staff provided us, and actually there's a modification since Eric saw this, it was roughly $314,000 is current bills, and then we gave an extra, basically 250,000 for anything that comes up going forward. So that was the thought, so that we weren't doing this very intense exercise multiple times before the end of the project, and you know, time is money, so if you've got contractors waiting to work, we're very fortunate that they are continuing to work right now.
Yeah.
And everything, so we did not want any kind of repeat of that and everything. So, but that was the joint.
Yeah, and just to add for, I guess, a little more detail, we had the Whitehall Road on the Parks Capital meeting 11 November on the agenda, but it was supposed to be, discussion was supposed to be deferred to the special meeting. However, we spent over half of that meeting in discussion on Whitehall Road. So I think a lot of those grievances, both from the authority and other individuals, got a little bit aired out in that meeting maybe, and maybe that helped us along on Tuesday, I don't know.
Some of that happened at post-facilities meeting also.
Yeah.
But it was good. I mean, you know, I think that, you know, given what happened, where we're at right now, I think is about the best possible outcome. You know, you can't change what happened, you know, early on in the project. Basically what happened was we started authorizing work that elected officials hadn't released funds for yet. And as Rich noted, 10% is a standard operating procedure for a contingency, particularly of a project this size and this volatile of a construction era with inflation and prices. So it was more the principle of the process than it was the actual amounts themselves. So once we found out specifically what those amounts were, some were within the control of the contract of the staff and project management teams, some weren't. I was particularly pleased to see that there was some follow-up being done by staff to see if some of that money, some of those funds could be recouped.
Staff also presented an improved review of the change order process, right? So they did present that.
Yeah.
It won't just be,
It's a tighter process now, much tighter, more normal, really, more structured, like if you were a regular business doing a project this size, this is the kind of structure you'd have in place.
Ounce of prevention.
Yeah, it should have been that way from the start, but that doesn't matter now. You know, we're there, we're where we need to be. People want the park, we're getting there.
Right, you know, so the current overages is less than 5%, which is good. But we need to go forward. One of the other things that came out of that was a suggestion that an elected official sit into the project management team as well, since obviously we're very much involved in additional funding with that, and that basically is a liaison, and that individual would report back to the general forum at each month, just to, you know, visibility and all that good kind of stuff.
And how do we feel about that? I mean, when does that get decided?
I would say that'll probably be a condition of the November general forum vote.
Okay.
I'm betting.
Okay.
So it will go to general forum, it's through all the process, it's on the agenda?
Yeah, so it did the joint, then it hit finance today, it'll hit exec next week, and then the intent is that it's gonna be on the general forum agenda.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get ahead of ourselves.
No,
We're in the process.
Yep,
we want.
absolutely.
yeah, specifically the elected official be a condition added on to the approval. of it.
Potentially, yeah.
Is that,
It's really an
is that by
administrative.
us, or is that by a certain municipality that's asking for that?
It was recommended by a certain municipality, but I think it makes sense. you know, it just gives you that much more visibility.
It was part of the Q&A to come out of the discussion, and
Yeah,
it come under the umbrella of transparency.
yeah.
And there was one other issue that it seemed to address.
Sure.
Structure, oversight, transparency.
Right.
I guess my only feeling on that is as long as their role is very, limited and clear,
Sure. Well.
right? Like,
And, no, I agree to a degree. One of the things that, you know, that there is some angst about the authority about all this, but I've been kind of adamant that if you hadn't overspent your budget, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So
Yeah.
us putting conditions on is, as long as we get the funding, it should be okay. So, and I think it will be okay, if we get the funding. If not, just so everybody's clear, that was the recommendation. The other option is shut the project down. And that's gonna have huge costs, and the asset is not gonna be available for the residents to use. Who knows when it's gonna be, how much more it's gonna cost.
Every day it's costing more.
Every day it's costing more, but the big thing, there was a suggestion of, well, we still have money that we haven't written checks on yet, and we could just pay our current bills with that while we talk about it more. But the reality is, every day that the contractor works, the bill goes up with money that hasn't been allocated. So it just makes the problem worse. So the authority, if they don't get the additional funding, needs to shut the project down, or they're putting themselves in a very
yeah,
litigious way.
and I understand that. I was just wondering where that, where that
Yeah,
idea was coming from, and yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'll vote for it.
Yeah,
That's
it
not the
was
issue, but-
proposed, and I think it's a reasonable condition, should it come forward with that.
Okay.
Depending on if the individual that's appointed to do that duty is reasonable, that's always a wild card, but yeah, so those were the big ones.
Okay.
Eric, your
Second meeting was shorter. Was our joint public safety. Rich sat in on the public safety, I sat in on Lucy. And it was the annual update from the emergency management folks in the area and transportation professionals. PennDOT was there. There was really two themes through all of the updates. One was that still quite a few entities that are understaffed. In fact, I only heard one that actually said they're fully staffed. And the second was a lot of kudos and congratulations to Steve Bear, as this is his last, probably safety meeting for the year, unless the COG group meets in December. And certainly his last annual EMS update. And then the only other thing that I thought was interesting was the second or third to last bullet item from PennDOT in the report. PennDOT is apparently building pads and sheds around the county in locations where weather or emergency detours frequently originate. They're unable to provide local emergency management, fire companies, ambulances and stuff, with materials, but they're providing sheds and stocking them with materials like cones and lights and stuff. So when the fire police and those get on site to direct traffic, and some of this I'm drawing is from his description, they have easy access to stuff, can set up and manage detours quicker and easier instead of hauling the stuff out there or showing up from somewhere without the stuff and waiting for somebody to bring stuff out. I thought that was kind of neat. PennDOT gets a bad rap sometimes for being Neanderthal and slow to move, but I don't know where that originated, but I thought that proactive step was interesting.
I think they said Clinton County.
What's that?
Clinton County. They had indicated that they had done that.
Done that in Clinton County?
Yeah.
I thought that was the most interesting thing that came out of the entire meeting.
Yeah.
Kudos to Clinton County.
Sorry, it'll take me a minute. Keep going. We're good.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's it.
Is that, any questions for Eric?
Real quick question, on the Comcast extending the broadband access, did they talk about timeframes for that, or what that was about?
Well, the
Dr.
first one is
Kurtman,
underway, that I assume they were
Oh,
doing.
in Spring Mills, yeah.
Yeah, they were doing that already.
Yeah.
And no, someone should have probably asked that question. All that she said was they had received a grant, and I assume the grant was specific for those 3 areas
Yeah.
that are mentioned in the report.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're not contiguous for
Is it a state or federal grant?
Curtin and Liberty. It says it's PA state grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just curious because, I've been out there a bunch and people have asked for that, so that caught my eye.
Yeah, probably in hindsight, maybe someone, or I should have followed up with that, but
Well, there's enough there for me to do that. I was just curious. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions for Eric? Okay, facilities, or finance met this morning. We debuted a consent agenda on a committee agenda of 5 items even. Of those items, we had, one of them was a similar discussion that we had at our last meeting about encumbering funds to meet an order deadline for a 2023 budget item, but encumbering in that. There was one of those for the fire extinguisher trainer, and then also we had one for a fire pickup truck, F-250, I think it was 250. Same deal, they have the 2-week window to order it, so they needed permission to encumber with payment in 2023 or later. And everything, so that went through. One of the other ones, we had extra money from the general forum room audiovisual project that's gonna be reallocated to do some additional items in the room to continue to try to improve the acoustics and whatnot. We received the municipal comments on the 2023 COG summary budget. Basically, there really wasn't any. The only ones that were really put out was $5,000 for the accounting software, to begin the study work for the replacement accounting software and everything. There was a discussion about that, and should the opportunity prevail itself or be required, potentially that would come out of contingency funds of the COG overall contingency funds, rather than allocate money and then like the IT study, allocate money in there and then it sits there for how long before it gets used. So that was agreeable. There was a motion made to put the 5,000 in that was withdrawn once we discussed that. Similarly, about the facilitator for parks governance, should that be needed, either if fund balance is greater than was projected, there's a source. If not, also potentially contingency money, if that's deemed worthy. Then, of course, we got into the Whitehall Road Regional Park update. We discussed the financial aspects of what was recommended out of the joint meeting. For any that weren't there, a couple key financial elements of that. In authorizing the 578, that's access to, and it can only be actually funded based on a paid invoice. So there's no chance of getting more money than is needed to pay the bills. Point number one. Point number two, if it is authorized, there is no increase in municipal contributions until 2031. The way we structured it in the financing was that it would not exceed what our debt service was back in 2020. If more money was afforded, it would go at the end. You would make more payments, but the total dollars would not, in any given year, would not go over what it was in 2020. So those are important elements on that. Then there was a robust discussion about, a certain member felt that the motion of the joint meeting was not specific enough, was too vague, and we discussed various things, basically to say this money that we're saying we're gonna use can only be used to pay the bills for phase one of the Whitehall Road Regional Park. So that was our intent, so putting it in writing
Right.
didn't seem like an issue. So we spent extensive time crafting a motion and everything like that, and then they voted against it. So it still passed 5-1 to recommend to the general forum and everything, the 578 with additional restricting, clarifying language and everything. So no different than what you saw. Eric, I did point out that the one thing that between the joint meeting and the finance meeting, Joe discovered a situation where a $20,000 donation was counted twice, once as a revenue and then again as a credit against expense and everything. So our total current and projected overage is 334 versus 314. Doesn't change the bottom line 578, it just makes $20,000 difference.
It was probably just a credit and not revenue?
Yeah, well, the way it was posted was both. Right. So it was basically a double dip of the 20,000. So they cleaned that up, and we presented all that in full transparency and everything. I don't expect many more anything like that anymore. But
Well, had Joe been involved from the start?
Yes, exactly. Yes, I do believe that. So obviously, we'll be having a robust discussion at the general forum meeting on Whitehall Road Regional Park. We did discuss, and this is kind of for Adam, we want to have, while it's fresh in everybody, to talk about the 2023 budget process in preparation for the 2024 budget process. So rather than do a special meeting, we made our regularly scheduled meeting on the 8th longer. So we'll be 8:30 to 11:30 is our allocated, is what we allocated. And so that'll be the intent there. I think it's a fairly light agenda otherwise, but.
That's out of finance right then.
Correct, finance December 8th, right. Yeah, that's it for that. There's been lots of other discussions and all that kind of stuff, but we're trying to keep it moving forward and real good. We got a detailed breakdown of the new parks team and the project management team, and everything I've seen so far, the team's working much better, so.
Before we move on.
Please.
I have a couple of meetings.
Yep.
Well, first of all, thank you for sitting in on the Public Safety Committee meeting. I spent the last 3 days in Harrisburg. Adam actually sat in on the College Township IDA meeting, which I don't know, before I talk about Spring Creek Watershed, if you have anything to share on IDA.
Actually, I did not. I was busy picking up relatives from an airport, but Jen was there. There was nothing additional on that had been listed on the agenda, Paul, that was covered.
Okay.
And I think that they ended in about 45 minutes, if I understand. Mike did sit in at that meeting on my side.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was not able to make that one. I was, however, able to get back last night for the Spring Creek Watershed Commission meeting. And just to bring folks up to speed, as you know, that Phase 3 working group has been appointed. They're working through trying to develop an actual working plan. And as part of that, we've been revisiting the bylaws of the organization to more closely match the realities of the way the commission is being run and the time allocations and work that it takes to be able to do this. So we proposed some minor tweaks, as minor as possible, to the bylaws, and those were presented last night. They were approved unanimously. In the interest of transparency, we're forwarding them to the municipalities for review with anticipated action by the commission in January to just amend those bylaws. So be on the lookout for a letter from me before the end of the month with those proposed changes. They're not significant, but they just basically take the reality that when the Articles of Agreement were initially made, the idea was that the commission would be primarily comprised of elected officials. The reality over time is that with COG meetings and other obligations, it has kind of become more of an alternate run organization. So this kind of takes stock of that and accounts for that moving forward. I will say, though, that I think for the coming year, I think it is really important that College Township, if at all possible, appoint an elected official to be the primary liaison. We're making that recommendation to the other COG municipalities as well as the other very actively engaged municipalities. So if you can appoint an elected official as the primary and someone like Bill Sharp or someone who is willing to put in the work as the alternate, they can fill some of those roles as well. And basically the elected official can help with the organization and the monitoring of the commission's work, but kind of turn the work over to some of the alternate folks who have the time, energy, and expertise to kind of move the ball forward. So that would be my recommendation. I certainly will make myself available to anyone who might be interested in stepping forward to take that, or council generally. Probably not now is the time, but I'd be happy to give you the background and go through everything in detail. I have to tell you, my concern is I have tried to work hard to get this thing moving forward again. It was not necessarily a productive endeavor recently, and I think we're starting to get the ball moving forward. So my goal, my hope is that this momentum outlasts my participation. And that's my report.
Okay.
I had a question.
Yeah.
The bylaws still require the chair and vice chair to be elected officials?
Yes.
So if, for example, the commission only has 2 elected officials.
Correct. Now, so the current bylaws require that.
That's not going to change as far as the.
It could change with the adoption of the new bylaws. But the organizational meeting will require an elected official to be a chair and vice chair. At that point, that chair and vice chair could facilitate the adoption of new bylaws which do not require that. They could then resign as chair and vice chair. There could then be a reorganization such that the work would carry on. If down the line that seemed to be the way to go. But the current bylaws require elected officials to be chair and vice chair.
Right, and do they require them, they serve until their appointments or their replacements are elected?
No.
Okay.
They resign.
They would need to resign, yeah, correct. Gotcha.
So we
Unless
just
they
want to
wanted
make
to.
sure that, and if there are elected officials who would like to serve as chair and vice chair, there are other positions. We created an executive committee as part of this, which would include the treasurer, a secretary, and then an appointee who would be responsible for putting together the agendas, responsible for managing the finances, creating reports, again, moving the ball forward. Because we have already authorized this phase 3 working group to begin the process of pulling together the committees and the expertise to begin to build the elements of a one water plan, which will eventually be consolidated and then proposed to the member municipalities for adoption or not. That's the goal, ultimately.
Sounds like IDA-ish type
Well,
configuration.
we have to be very
stuff.
careful because there's no authority, there's no
Right,
regulatory authority, and I think that's the great fear, but that's not what this is about. And it goes to more than just an educational organization. The initial mission of the Spring Creek watershed was to develop a comprehensive plan or recommendation, set of recommendations, best practices, all of those things that could then be approved by the member municipalities as a goal, as a shared goal and resource, which would then allow potentially intermunicipal agreements and projects and other things that were all aligned to the protection and enhancement of this resource. Because ultimately, it is a shared resource between the 12 member municipalities. And we just need to emphasize that there is a shared interest and shared opportunity to do that. And I, by the way, plan to continue to support those efforts in any capacity that I am able going forward. I just can't do it as a member of the commission.
So we can't appoint you. Okay.
No. It is a lifetime appointment, apparently, however. Emeritus status or something? I don't know how that works. But.
Okay. Any other COG, regional, county, or liaison reports?
That's it.
Okay.
My last.
Staff, PC, or other committee?
PC met on Tuesday. We discussed the Arise plan, the sketch plan, the roads, lane, land development plan, and the All Nations subdivision plan. We also had an RFQ update, which was similar to what Adam gave today. And I did want to mention that I did reach out to the liaison and the sub-liaison, the backup, and indicated, we'd like to see them come to the council meetings. So I just wanted to let you know, I did make them aware that, even shared the Zoom link in case they wanted to join via Zoom.
Okay. They don't want to participate. Diversity, equity, and inclusion report. Any member of council or any member of the public have anything to share under that item?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, just a reminder about the DEI practices for municipal officials workshop, excuse me, on Wednesday, November 30th at 7 p.m. Wow, I don't know what is happening. Forgive me 1 second. It's hard to cough while you're laughing at yourself. Okay. Yeah, so it's just asked that you RSVP. There was a doodle poll sent out first. So if you think you RSVP'd, just make sure you really RSVP'd because you might be remembering filling out the doodle poll. I am guilty of that. I think they have Eric on there and Mike Bloom. You RSVP'd as well. Yeah, so.
It's a busy week.
It is a busy week.
If you're not sure, check, because it will create a little calendar thing for you if you did. At least it gives you that option, because I always forget if I RSVP.
So you click the little calendar thing. That's smart.
Doesn't hurt to do it a second time.
Right.
Just creates a second.
Yeah, so, or if you know of a municipal official or, staff in other municipalities. College Township has relatively good representation so far signed up, so that's excellent. Some other municipalities, not as much yet. There's still time. So I also wanted to say that it has come to my attention that the borough has hired a director of equity and inclusion, which is interesting. I'll be interested to see what comes out of that as a fellow municipality, see how that works, and what kind of outcomes they have, and also hopefully maybe they can lead the way as we've led the way in many other areas for the region. They can, this director can lead the way in some, and maybe we can follow in those footsteps in different ways. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then finally, it sounds as if the borough police have made some recent hires as well. And so far as there have been a couple of African-American police officers that have been hired very recently. And that hearing that reminded me of that we haven't had a report from the borough police in a couple of years. I believe. I think 2020, I want to say. Did we?
Last
On,
No, sorry, not a report from the police based on that, but the workshop we had with the police on communication with us, as far as it involves, like, actually working with our community towards diversity, equity, inclusion.
manager has a note.
Can I add one thing to Carla's? Oh,
If Carla's
if you're
done,
done.
Please.
please.
The State College Area School District just hired a Director of Equity, Inclusivity, and Belonging as well,
Yeah, Tanya Black.
Tanya Black. So that hire was last week, I believe, last Monday. So, yeah, a couple of new folks.
Yeah, that was replaced, they had
Surya Chatters was,
Yeah,
she
they
went to
had-
Penn State,
had a director,
and then
right?
Tanya Black.
Yeah.
You mentioned the borough person, and I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Anything else on diversity, equity, and inclusion? Very good. We will move to our consent agenda. This evening's consent agenda consists of correspondence, letter from Dan Cleese dated November 7th, 2022 regarding Route 322 traffic concerns, an email from Sandy Lucas dated October 30th, 2022 regarding Spring Creek parking issues, an email from Jennifer Cross dated November 3rd, 2022 regarding Oak Ridge traffic, a letter from Pantera Engineering dated November 3rd, 2022 regarding time extension to February 28th, 2023 Altman Inc. subdivision, a letter from Paul Takak.
You don't need to just skip that one.
All right. We won't accept that one, right? Okay. Email from Catherine Witt dated November 11th, 2022 regarding Berry Street. Email from Angela Lesher dated November 12th, 2022 regarding Berry Street. Letter from Daniel and Stephanie Schrader dated November 3rd, 2022 regarding pedestrian facilities master plan. Under action items, we have resolution R-22-21, Spring Creek Park Master Plan, and we have resolution R-22-22, All Nations Bible Translation Sewage Facilities Planning Module. Does any member of council wish any of those items pulled for further discussion?
CA2C
Okay,
and E, I guess.
okay,
CA2A.
okay.
What's been pulled so far?
A, C, and E.
A, C, and E.
AC and E?
Uh-huh. Good.
That's it for me.
Feels like Wheel of Fortune.
I was gonna say, there's not a lot left. How about we talk about A, C, and E, and then we'll just approve the whole consent agenda?
Can you get a vowel?
Seriously, okay. Let's start with A. Who?
Yes, that's me. Yeah, so this is a letter from Dan Cleese regarding the PennDOT State College Area Connector Plan, and I just wanted to know what, I guess if he had his druthers, what would he have us do? Okay, staff, what is he asking for?
Well, actually, what
Like, what
the
do
way
we
that
have
I-
control over?
in layman's terms, and there are others in the room that can probably expand upon this concept, but in essence, the State College Area Connector project shows areas in College Township that are part of the study area. And what I believe that Dan is getting to here is there are some long-standing historic issues that, in particular, the S-curve on 322 as it runs through College Township, that, as we know, are safety concerns and safety issues. And essentially what Dan is suggesting is, he is suggesting that College Township advocate to PennDOT as part of the connector project to look at that area and if at all possible, try to resolve those issues in some other physical way than presently exists. That's my quick 30,000 foot take on this, but I think that Eric has had an opportunity to speak with Dan, and he may
Okay.
be able to add some
Yeah.
additional color.
And that's it. And I think Dan's right. Anybody who's familiar with that, that's a problem. And I think he sees this
As a window.
as an opportunity for us to try to begin to try and address this. And I think he's right. And I think there's two things that we can do if there is consensus amongst council, is, as Adam noted, College Township is in the study area. So as a result, we have an official seat at the table as a participating agency, and we have an avenue to provide official comments. And the Pell report, which is the report that is going to narrow the choices from 9 down to 3, all 3 of them coming coming through Harris Township along the current alignment. As a result, it's just going to make the situation out here, in all likelihood, worse, because you're going to have more traffic. As Dan cited in his letter, whether they do anything or not, traffic's going to increase, increasing the danger, the possibilities there of accidents. So with this, we have a seat at the table. We could go on record and ask PennDOT, to look at some kind of more permanent fix to that situation. The options are limited. The second is, and this is a broader approach, and that this is not the first place within this area that would be impacted to talk about upstream and downstream impacts. So the MPO could ask formally that PennDOT look at impacts upstream or downstream, this would be downstream impact, as part of the SEAC plan. It came up in a more pronounced way when, with 2 of the options, crossing Route 45 and creating a new interchange there. The folks on 45 said, well, that's great, but what are we going to do on 45 then to accommodate the increased traffic? This is fairly similar. So locally, we have an option as a participating agency, if there's a consensus here, to offer that as a comment, as a starting point, on the record. And then regionally, as an MPO, we could ask the MPO to ask PennDOT to look at these upstream and downstream impacts and accelerate potential solutions or mitigations to any impact as part of this project. So I think if there's consensus amongst everyone here that this is an opportunity to go on record and try to begin to address this situation as part of this project, that would be my recommendation. Adam,
at this point, I think that would be, I don't know if you want additional information. I don't know if we could always make a request that Dan would be willing to speak to council directly. If that is your pleasure, I think he'll be expressing exactly what we have here in front of us. So it really boils down to your comfort level this evening. If in fact this is a direction that you would like to go and you would like to register a formal comment, we can make that happen.
Okay, and that would be via a letter from council or the manager, or what?
And would we send that
Yes.
to PennDOT and to the MPO?
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt,
CC.
but you have a representative on the MPO.
I was just going to say, I think we need to do both.
Yeah. Just to be clear, the way the MPO is going to handle this is staff is going to put together the recommendations, and they're simply going to be vetted by the chair. So the MPO's recommendations are not going before the entire MPO for a vote or an endorsement. They're simply going to be put together with staff and then approved by the chair. So a letter would be helpful.
Yeah.
So a letter to PennDOT CCing the
MPO.
Jim Saylor?
And to the MPO.
Okay.
And if you want, maybe that's where Dan could be of help is in crafting that letter.
Yeah.
I mean, this letter was very straightforward and clear. Did a nice job laying out.
And speaking to
his-
Dan, he has some specific ideas as to what could be done as far as short-term mitigation.
Short-term meaning something that could be done soon?
Something that could
short-term
be
is
done
it's
other
only
than
going to
tearing the
last
road up
so
and
long.
straightening it out, which is probably not going to happen. So maybe any mitigation at this point, I guess, would be deemed short-term in the sense that it, you can't really.
Less than long-term.
Yeah.
No, I guess I'm asking short-term as in it can happen sooner, or short-term as in it's only going to last so long?
Well, I think sooner, or the goal is to have something done in place before.
The traffic.
I agree.
And so that would be short, for me, that's when I say short-term.
Okay.
It's something that could be done within the next 8 years before the road opens.
Right. Potentially.
Potentially. Before the road potentially opens.
So, between staff, our staff, and our CCMPO rep,
We got it.
you got it. I'm not gonna be, I know personally, I'm not gonna be able to contribute anything extra.
No, but I think if there's consensus around the table that those are legit concerns and this is an opportunity, the best one we're going to have.
Yeah,
This was-
I didn't want this, yeah, I thought when Dan writes a letter, I listen.
We talked about this when this whole project was first, proposed. The S-curve has always been brought up every time we've ever talked about anything on 322, so you certainly have my consensus. I thought it was already listed, but anything we can do to underscore it would be.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, that's it from that one.
C.
Yeah, so C was the letter regarding photo speed cameras on, like Oak Ridge Avenue as a traffic calming measure. I just wanted to bring it up for discussion to see whether or not this was something that may have been discussed in LTAC or not, just to kind of give that awareness.
Well, it has been discussed
Good.
all over the state for many years. It is not allowed in Pennsylvania.
Good.
But I think there's legislation out there now.
There is, but
Whether it's gonna pass, it'll pass the same time radar for local police department gets passed, yeah.
Hey, you never know what's gonna happen.
Or red light
in the new
cameras.
year.
There's only one,
Yeah.
Philadelphia is the only community in Pennsylvania that is allowed and has special dispensation to utilize red light cameras. And they're utilized to such a degree, there's a state grant fund, the ARLA grant, Automated Red Light Enforcement Grant, that is made available to all municipalities.
We've received money from that grant.
We've
for-
received
Yeah, lots of
several
ARLA
ARLA
grants.
grants over time. It is not an inconsequential pool of money, which I reckon is the reason why the legislature is less than enthusiastic about adopting red light enforcement throughout the Commonwealth.
Gosh, maybe it would help the backlog on road repairs. So,
Didn't want more money.
Ms. Cross is absolutely correct, they're incredibly effective, but
It's the
unfortunately,
it's
they're
the same logic
not
about
legal
giving
in Pennsylvania.
local municipalities radar,
Right,
that it would be misused.
right.
That's an opinion.
Sure.
I don't have that as a.
Dustin, anything else on that?
Nope.
Very
Thanks.
good. E,
Oh, E, I wanted to bring up E,
yeah,
just as opportunity to say thank you to Paul and wish him his best and give him an opportunity as well to say anything he'd like to say.
Well, I tried to say it in the letter. I mean, that,
You didn't think somebody was gonna pull this agenda item?
But we don't have to accept
I
the
didn't know. I
resignation.
thought maybe we'd wait till the end. We still got a ways to go
We
here.
can do that.
But,
We can do that, right?
but, I did try to express the fact that, I am very appreciative, and I think College Township stands as a model for consensus building, for working together, for having a great staff and a great team. And, I certainly hope to carry that spirit forward into any future things I do. I don't think it will be as smooth as it sometimes it is. The meetings may be as long or longer. I will let you know when they go longer.
We'll loan you Eric.
I think there's plenty of opportunities and reasons. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait to continue to serve the people and community of College Township just in a different role. And I know they're in very good hands moving forward with you all, so thank you.
And that's all we have to say about that.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, it's been an honor. Unless there's anything else, I would ask for a motion to approve the November 17th consent agenda in whole. We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. OB1, Pedestrian Facilities Master Plan. Lindsay.
We actually had a presentation prepared for council to kind of refresh everyone's recollection about what we were doing. This is, I understand, the same presentation, Lindsay, that was provided to the Center Region Planning Commission a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago. And with you're okay, I'd like Lindsay to walk through that. This has been a 4-year plus effort on the part of staff, council, and the community to pull this together. A lot of the foundation work was done before 2018 by the prior staff. But it's really been over the last 4 years that this has all finally come together. And I think it's an important milestone for the township. And Lindsay, I'd like to just turn the floor over to you, and with your indulgence, council, we'll go through this presentation.
Okay, thanks so much. So I'm here tonight to proudly present to you the Walkable College Township Pedestrian Facilities Master Plan. This is one of the final steps in the process, and it's been a long and intensive planning effort, so thank you for everyone who's been a part of this so far. The goal of the Pedestrian Facilities Master Plan is to provide an interconnected, continuous, and well-maintained network of sidewalks, shared use paths, and other related facilities that provide all users, regardless of age and ability, with safe and efficient access to numerous key destinations throughout College Township and the Center Region. And to assist in realizing the goals, the following objectives have been set forth: enhance safety, expand connectivity, improve accessibility, ensure proper maintenance, better public health, and leverage private and public investments. So as we move through the presentation, the maps sort of tell a story. The story begins with existing conditions and ends with the recommendations. This first map identifies all existing conditions, including sidewalks, shared use paths, as well as it points out all of the properties in the township that have been granted waivers over the years. Some of these properties have notes on the plans that require them to install sidewalks when the adjacent property is developed and install sidewalks as well. But others just got a waiver, and no future pedestrian facilities will be placed in some of those areas. This second map represents the identified priority corridors and where our current connectivity exists. And then as we move to this map, this is the heat map. This is a result of the first public participation effort. This map, that was a pretty fun exercise, but the darker purple areas on the map represent the areas with most interest in seeing facilities where those are. And then we get into equity of access. It's been a reoccurring theme through the process, starting with this map, which displays the well-served and the underserved areas. In order to ensure equity for all people and the opportunity for everyone to have access, this map becomes very important. The pink represents the underserved and the blue areas represent the well-served. In order to effectuate equity of access, the underserved neighborhoods will need to rise to the well-served neighborhoods, which connect to the core pedestrian facilities. Let's blow up there of that. And this was the fun map to prepare. We gathered our pens and pencils and we just drew proper, lines to where we think would make sense to have future facilities. My favorite one is the one that connects down to the Spring Creek Canyon. Some of the priority corridors may not be feasible, as we will see shortly, but adding the secondary corridors will help make necessary connections long before the core system might be established. So I call this the Sunshine Happy Planner Rainbow Map. But then we let
Is there
the
an acronym for that?
Not yet. We can make one.
Sunshine, yeah.
Then we let the engineers in the room, and the blue lines represent all of the barriers. The polygons are policy barriers, the blue lines are engineering barriers, and the purple line are public property barriers.
The dream squashers.
Exactly, thank you. The barriers to connectivity include engineering the features that make design and construction more challenging, like East College Avenue. Policy, municipal or regional policies, like Fogelman Fields is a good example. Private properties, the small purple line that you can see here on the map is at the end of Commercial Boulevard, connecting down into...
Sorry, that's okay. Sore spot.
That connects, so that's a missing link there, which, would really connect that area, but there's issues with it's private property, so that is another barrier. But as time goes on, future development will provide more opportunities for closing those existing incomplete connections. Developing facilities along the primary routes would be ideal, but the existing barriers make it difficult. Therefore, the secondary investment corridors have been identified as paths of least resistance. That's a Mike term, if everyone realized that. The goal in identifying these corridors is to establish lines on the map for council to consider when establishing facilities on our own. Our primary investment corridors include East College Avenue, Puddintown Road, Elmwood Avenue, Hauserville Road, East Branch Road, Pike Street, and Shiloh Road. These aim to close the gaps in the system. The secondary investment corridors include East College Avenue between Elmwood Avenue and the Nittany Mall, and Pike Street from Dale Street to East College Avenue. These are designed to be paths of least resistance or the easier way to get across town without major barriers. But remember, at this point, these are just lines on the map. When the plan gets implemented, then that's when the engineering comes in and we can really identify the routes in which the paths will go, but this is conceptual at this time. So now we get into implementation, and planners know that plans shouldn't just sit on a shelf and collect dust. A lot of time and effort went into this process, and in order to ensure the proper implementation of the plan and see some end results, staff has prepared ordinance changes to move concurrently forward with the plan adoption. Those include amendments to the subdivision and land development ordinance, the first one being a pedestrian facilities fee in lieu. This option can still add value to our system, but also gives the developers the opportunity to avoid construction if it's going to create a hardship. Secondly, we have the deferral option. This is being tested, as Mark Toretti discussed earlier. We allowed the Stalker Auto Body Shop to defer the sidewalks for the remainder of the property until such time as a new development comes in. So we saw that that is working tonight with the Arise sketch plan. And then we have waivers. We hope to use these as a last resort, but the option will be available when it is necessary to provide a waiver. To help staff and the developers guide through this process, we created this prioritization matrix. We have been testing it for the past, I'd say, 4 or 5 subdivision or land development plans we had. We ran the numbers, and if they scored a 7 or below, they had a better chance of getting a waiver or a deferral. And then we have the official map revisions. As another implementation strategy, the township will take the paths and facilities proposed in the master plan, and we will add those to the official map. One thing that we did want to mention, that as a result of our public participation process, there will be one path removed from the official map, and this is the area over by the quarry, which probably won't be going anywhere for a while, so we felt that it's an acceptable time to remove this from the map. But the updating of the official map is also a process, so that will also come in front of the Planning Commission and in front of council. So with that, and barring any substantive changes tonight, we're requesting 2 actions. The first action would be to adopt Walkable College Township, a pedestrian facilities master plan, and to enact ordinance 02204, implementing the several recommendations that we have inside of the plan. So I think this is a great step in the right direction, and I'm really excited to move forward, knowing the opportunities that will come out of this plan. So if council is open, then we hope that we would move forward with our recommendations.
Okay.
That's it.
There, Adam?
Yeah, just to provide some clarity, and Lindsay stated this, but I wanted to underscore the fact that the modifications to the official map will be forthcoming. They're not actually part of any action that council would be taking this evening. That would be handled in all likelihood next year, 2023, as part of the work plan for the Planning Commission and then on to council.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Questions or comments from council? Carla?
Yeah, so this has been in the works
As long
as
we've
long
been
as
on-
we've
been
been
on
on council. This is so exciting. Thank you, Lindsay, and the other staff that has helped with this so much. It's been really neat to see it come so far and to be so complete and engaging and useful. Like, it's all of the great things, right? If we had paid an organization to make this plan for us, I would have been blown away by what we received for our money. So the fact that this came out of our staff is just something I think that we can be really, really proud of. Like, thank you so much. I would be remiss if I didn't respond to the public comments by Ms. Is it Schrader? Schrader. And so I just want to encourage you that as this is a master plan, none of those lines are exact. You see the lines going right past your house. I know what that feels like. But they're far away at this point, A, and B, I hope you saw in the plan, there's actually quite a significant note in that specific area that says, I can't remember what exactly the wording is, but.
There are impediments to.
Yeah.
to actually.
Restriction.
That makes everything you said pretty clear within the plan itself. right? Like I saw that.
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, barriers.
Barriers, yeah. So I just wanted you to know that your comments have actually made it into this. The line's not moving, but the comments are there, okay? And then the only final thing I have to say is on the ordinance, quickly, on page 3 of 5, under, I believe it's F. I think the last time we looked at this, it was actually Paul, perhaps, or maybe it was somebody else, but I think it was Paul, who mentioned the numbering 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the lettering of A, B, and C kind of being a little bit like repetitive and not necessarily flowing from one into the other. And I don't know that that change was made. Did you look at that again, Paul?
I missed
Which is
that.
understandable.
Yeah, it was about following whether they were options or
Right.
triggers, gates.
Right, exactly.
Through which they would pass.
And
Is that still not
I
as
see
clear?
it, when I read through it, I caught it this time, and then it triggered my memory of when you caught it last time. So we have a waiver, council may waive the requirements, et cetera, et cetera. If it determines in the following circumstances that the amount of pedestrian traffic will be minimal. I'm guessing what the colon is referring to is quote unquote, the following circumstances. That gets a little lost in the sentence. But, so I guess the following circumstances then are, 1, a subdivision or land development being outside the growth boundary, single-family residential neighborhood with no other sidewalks, et cetera, et cetera. And then we get into waivers shall only be considered, I could be wrong, maybe it's correct.
I do remember changing that.
Oh, okay.
Because it was like the 1, 2, 3, 4, those are what you have to meet to be able to obtain the waiver, but A, 1, 2, 3, 4, B, C, those are the things that are required as part of the waiver submission. Like the
Right.
submission to apply for the waiver is how it's intended to read. If it doesn't.
Could you say that again? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, say that again.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the things that you have, those are things that were in the existing ordinance that had to be met to be able to be considered for a waiver. But then below, the A, B, C, those are the things that you have to place in the, let's see, how is it called here?
There are actually 5, 6, 7, is that what you're?
No, they go under 4, so it's true.
Maybe it's just that,
So one of the factors has to apply. So
Yeah.
once,
A, B, or C.
yes, there.
So 4 should maybe be another subheading. 4 is, or.
well, here's where I get caught, is that C is, the proposed facility is on a parcel located outside the regional growth boundary, but that's also 1.
It's redundant, yeah, I see that.
So that's where my brain got kind of like, which one's which? What's this list? What's that list? I don't know that this, if we can really like figure this out, I don't think in the right way. I'm hoping it's not a substantive, a substantive comment, but
Well, you're not changing any of the criteria
correct.
that is being described. It is a matter of making sure that the intent is being properly conveyed.
Correct.
And
So
it could
in
just be
theory,
formatting change.
in theory, I don't think, in that context, in my opinion, that is not substantive.
Right.
So if in fact we have the ability tonight to figure this out, provided we're not changing
The meaning.
the meaning of what we're trying to achieve, which I think we can accomplish that.
Right.
I don't know that this, I don't believe that this would need to be re-advertised.
Great.
So saying that now the challenge is to get.
Figure
this-
out.
To get
Yeah,
this
to figure it
pulled
out.
together.
Notes from that last one. Well,
So is F 1 through, so, yeah, I'm still struggling even with what the F line is saying, I guess.
okay, maybe. So it's coming, it reads just right how it came out of the plan. But yeah.
So I would, let me take a stab here. Perhaps, and I think there are multiple alternatives here, by the way, to how this reads. But one could be, council may waive the requirements for sidewalks contained above if it determines in the following circumstances, you could, and now you could letter 1, that the amount of pedestrian traffic will be minimal. 2, the provisions of sidewalks will create an undue hardship. And/or 3, the provisions of sidewalks will change the rural character of the area proposed for development. Period. Now we need,
G.
now we need, what we need to do is we need to identify what the criteria for the waiver is, which 1, 2, 3, and 4 pertain to. Correct?
Correct.
Well-
But so do A, B, and C.
Well, those are even more specific requirements. So I mean, I think, excuse me, I think we have to reach some agreement on what we're initially saying in F. Waiver, that part's correct. Waiver period, there's nothing wrong with that. However, we need to figure out the rest of that, because then we can determine what 1, 2, 3, and 4 are, and then what A, B, C, D, and E are.
Could,
Or A, B, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
A,
could-
B, C.
could 4 bump out to an actual,
That's what I thought.
That's what I was
Paragraph.
thinking, a G.
To paragraph
Just do away
G.
with 4C and put that wording up in 1.
as a paragraph G, okay. I was just gonna bump it out in, under the waiver thing, and then the A, B, and C would change over to 1, another set of 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I think that was our suggestion
I think it was.
back when we
Say
had
that
this
again.
discussion.
Say what you just said.
Number 4 becomes G.
And that A then
Existing
becomes
4A becomes 4-1.
G1.
I'm sorry, G1. And then,
Then GA, or 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and then this is 2, 3.
correct.
Here though, let's also go
Look at
back
the C.
to the fact that C is the same as
As-
GC,
as
then
F1.
will be the same as F. Well, no, I liked Adam's, it'll be F1A
Yeah,
or F something A.
F, you mean breaking up that first paragraph?
I liked the breaking up the first paragraph because having a list within one of those
Is there a
headings
way we can
isn't
present this
usually.
and modify it? to
Yeah,
say-
let me share my screen here.
Yeah, on screen.
That's what
to
we
get on
did
my
with the
computer,
finance
type it
motion
out?
this morning.
Aw,
You might be able
We
to
did.
edit here.
Drafted
nothing
up
new under
on
the
a,
sun, right, Rich?
It's like turn into a working meeting.
Oh, wait, maybe I do have a new doc. No, I don't.
Because, I mean, I'm in agreement with Adam's first suggestion, so if I can see that, maybe my wheels can start turning a little bit more.
Okay.
The purpose of this section, Lindsay, is to describe specifically what needs to be met in order for what? Because we've discussed fee and lieu,
It's in order for the waiver to be granted.
the full waiver
Right.
On here,
to be
you would-
considered.
to be
on
considered.
circumstances and put a semicolon right here,
Well,
and then do, then these.
What I suggest, well, I can do it from here, I don't need to see that.
Well, I almost wonder So here's my question, is F123 another way of saying for ABC?
Well, A, B, and C are more requirements for what Dawn or the engineer will have to review. Technically.
So 1, 2, 3, the current 1, 2, 3 and what's mixed into F are more like existing impediments.
I would suggest that the existing F1, 2, and 3 describe how the items in the waiver paragraph are going to be determined. So by that, what I mean is, taking my original suggestion with this, council may waive the requirements for sidewalks contained above if it determines in the following circumstances: 1, that the amount of pedestrian traffic will be minimal. Well, how are you going to determine that? 1, 2, and 3 are
Yeah.
the factors that determine how you're going to make that decision. And
So
again,
those are subcategories
So you
of
go 1,
one.
and those are A, B, C, these three.
Let's try that.
well, I mean,
Let's try it. Right?
and then number 2 there, the provisions of sidewalks will create an undue hardship. How are you going to determine that? Again, they may be referring to the same 1, 2, and 3, or maybe not, right? And then 3, and/or 3, the provisions of sidewalks will change the rural character of the area proposed for the development. Again, clearly, if something, for example, is outside of the regional growth boundary, very minimal development, placement of a sidewalk in that area would change that rural character, et cetera, et cetera.
So then would you have this will be determined by the following, colon?
Yeah, something
Or
like
such
factors to be considered in those determinations will be, or may include.
Factors may include, 1, a subdivision or land development plan outside of the regional growth boundary.
Yeah. You know, I would
Factors
take
may
that
include-
first sentence in number 4 and I'd put that right up front, an F. Waiver shall only be considered in fee in lieu of and
Yeah,
deferral
before you-
often
before you
exhausted.
even
And it
get
said
to-
council may waive, like Rich was saying, it needs to be right up front. Because that further confuses it, because like you guys are talking, I agree, everything below 4 is, this is what you gotta do, like criteria.
If,
So
yeah,
take
that's
that
G.
sentence out right here, this waiver shall not be, or shall only be considered.
No, I think he's saying it needs to go up at the beginning.
Yeah, move it to right here
Yep.
where it
Yes.
is. Okay,
Yep, I agree.
all right.
Because otherwise you go back up. You don't go
That's what I
down.
was saying, if they were, right, those leading sentences seemed
So if you
complimentary
get to that point,
me.
you haven't exhausted your fee in lieu,
Exactly. This is like last ditch effort to get.
then go back up.
Yeah, and there is the process flow chart too that goes along with this and will be adopted as part of, will be used as a guide, and kind of have a feeling that's what we were following when putting this language together.
I don't think the flow chart is an error.
Okay. No, I think it's all.
I think this is just the written description here.
Makes it hard.
I just don't
Which
know
is
why
why
1,
flowcharts
2,
exist.
3 can't just be listed along with A, B, and C. I mean, how are 1, 2, C is even 1. Like,
Right, yeah, that's.
why not just make them one list? Because, or do you have to meet all of A, B, and C, but you can meet 1, 2, or 3? Is that the deal?
Yeah, it says after at least one of the
Additional
following
factors may
factors shall apply. So you have to meet 1, 2, and 3, and then 4,
Well, you don't have to meet one. You could meet one.
Yeah, those are, how do you want to say it?
I think it's any of the first three, right? Because it says and/or.
That's what I mean, like,
Right.
can they be just one, can we look at them as just one list? What do you think, Lindsay?
Yeah, I mean, if that sounds simple and it won't change the intent, and it would still allow the person who's reading this to know that they need to submit all of these A, B, C, I, to the township to be considered for the waiver.
Do you, only one, if you do A, this cover letter, this waiver justification, this cost estimate, this hardship justification pursuant, you don't have to meet B?
Yep, that's true, because it's one of the following.
Right, okay. So that, if the subdivision or land development is within a single-family residential neighborhood where no other sidewalks exist, do you need to meet B? Sorry, I'm just asking the. Do you need to score less than a 7? Sorry, I'll be
Is it an
explicit.
and?
Yeah, like where are any of them ands?
So it should be consideration for waivers.
It just
You
says
can-
at least one of the following factors. So the answer to your question would be no.
Well, does it say that it doesn't say that for 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't say anything about whether it's one or all.
1, 2, and 3 are, F1, 2, and 3 are problematic right now.
That's
I mean,
what I know.
yeah.
That's what I'm trying to pull out. So I just stated number 2, and to see if it was an and or an or. Well, my other question is, isn't regional growth boundary in the facility score?
It is. It's in the matrix.
The matrix?
I didn't bring the full thing, but
It's,
I know
I just looked at it and I remembered,
I know it's.
yeah.
So are we looking to add at least one of the following factors shall apply to the upper at F?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, that's why yeah.
Additionally,
We've already had the public hearing.
I know.
We're not going to change the content, we're not changing the words or the meaning. We're getting these in the proper order. I think.
We can make a motion like that?
No.
No.
No, we need to come back, but we don't need to have another public hearing. We've already had a public hearing.
so we table it,
I think you,
Or-
that's what I.
or just take no action. There has been no motion.
Unless there's a disagreement. We're
No,
gonna have another public
I mean, I don't
hearing.
think we're gonna solve this tonight.
That's my point.
Yeah.
We're not gonna solve it tonight. There's just more, we need to make sure the i's are dotted.
Sure.
We've
This
come
is the
far.
piece, I know, and this one's sticky, and it's just a little bit complicated.
So, because I'm not anticipating any of the wording changing other than the arrangement of the words that we have here, the question then becomes, is the new arrangement of the wording enough to change the context enough to require us and to warrant
Well, I think
a
we
new
can
public hearing?
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
cross that bridge when I come to it.
So,
I don't think we want to change the meaning.
right, agreed.
No, it just doesn't I mean, that, to
Doesn't
have that
flow.
C down.
It doesn't, yeah, to your point, it doesn't clearly convey the intent for how we want you to go about a waiver.
Yeah, it's almost like a decision chart.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
I think I used the term gates. It's like you pass through these gates and then hear the
Okay, skiing guy.
skiing guy.
maybe-
There you go. We're slalom through this ordinance.
Maybe taking another look at the flow chart, because I know we matched the text up with how it flowed through. That might bring back,
That's true, we have the flow charts as our, as our landing point, so
yeah.
that's great.
So, I mean, that's something we can do.
So I think that this item needs to be tabled.
Do official action to table it or just bring it back?
We don't have a motion, so do we actually need?
No, you're right, we don't.
There was no motion.
We'll just bring it back.
Okay.
We'll come back.
Okay.
We'll be back next week, or, well,
Well, you'll be alone.
Okay,
I'll come,
If I'm
work session, he wants to schedule a
I'll
work
bring
session.
cookies.
next time.
Okay.
Next time.
You adopt both things next time? You don't?
Representative-elect Takak has a comment.
Just a brief one. I've not been on council as long as these other folks, but I will not be here for the final passage of this, but I definitely want to tip my hat for all the work. Second what Carla said. I mean, just the way this process has unfolded, the creativity around bringing in the GIS expertise that we have and all of the other things. To underscore what I said earlier about College Township in many ways being a model for other municipalities, I think this is an outstanding example of that. So kudos to everyone. And perhaps it will be appropriate to have Mike here to talk one more time about the benefits of a matrix prior to any adoption of an ordinance. But I just wanted to go on record as saying that, so thank you.
I would be remiss not to say that that's probably a reflection of our award-winning manager.
Ah, yes.
Wow.
I told him today at PSAP that
You know, it's,
almost every meeting we recognize his leadership.
It took me till
9:13.
9:13. It took me till 9:13.
2.5 decades.
Took me into
of
9:13,
outstanding
but we
leadership.
got it. Okay, so we will be seeing that again,
Do we want to, they're still here.
sure. Ms. Schrader, it looks like you've been joined by a friend. Did you understand what Carla was sharing with regard?
The waivers, yes.
Yeah.
So you're gonna come back to this at another meeting?
We are, yeah, we're just not comfortable with how it flows in that one section of the proposed ordinance. Although I think there was a general support for the pedestrian facilities master plan. I think I sensed a consensus on that, but that your specific concern was pretty much referenced in there as
Yeah, on
a
page
barrier.
25, actually.
Yeah.
I went back and I looked. On page
Thanks for
25 of our handout, it specifically points out that on Hauserville Road, there are limited right-of-ways, there are challenges to actually implementing that line on the map. So in the future, should there ever be an opportunity to revisit that, that's the point at which council, in collaboration with the engineer and others, can revisit that line, whether it's even feasible, whether it makes any sense. But just putting it on the map now allows us to have that conversation in the future. It isn't a commitment.
Yeah, it actually says.
That's the point. It's not a commitment.
It actually has your idea in it, which is the potential of an alignment through Spring Creek Park to Puddintown Road should be investigated.
Yes.
Yes.
it's a placeholder.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the example in our official map discussion, there's a former placeholder that's going to be removed because it's simply not feasible.
And there's several other examples.
Yes.
Over, when Aspen Heights was under development, we took lines off of a map there. We did it out by Premier Drive. We took lines off of a map. So it's not unheard of. It's actually in many ways more common to take the lines off than to put them on. But your concerns are duly noted, and there's no imminent action on it.
We just ask that if Houserville Road does get brought up at some point in the future, that we can be part of that discussion somehow. If you could just let us know, we would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We would enjoy that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we're not taking any action. We'll be seeing this again. Moving on to new business, MB1, proposed 2023 College Township budget.
Yeah, Lindsay, if you or Jen or someone can pop up the
I have it up.
quick PowerPoint. Yeah, the item before council this evening is action on the proposed 2023 budget. And just to give you, the bottom line up front, there is no real estate property tax increase that is being proposed in the 2023 proposed budget. Very quickly, next slide. Talk quickly about 2022 and how things kind of played out. You will recall that leading into 2022, we had a couple of incremental property tax increases, 0.4 mils in 2020 and 0.3 mils in 2021. There was also, in conjunction with that, there was a dramatic reduction in expenditures, both in 2020 and 2021. These were the pandemic years, primary pandemic years. We noticed a beginning of a turnaround, return to normal economic conditions toward the end of 2021. And of course, there were the federal aid packages that came to play a very big role in what we ultimately were able to do in the 2023 budget construction. So speaking of that federal aid, the American Recovery Plan, the township received just over $1 million in ARP funds. That came in two different staunches, two different payments, one in 21 and one in 22. Last year, in the construction of the 2022 budget, we used about $350,000 of those ARP funds. And so the balance of that first year payment, coupled with what we received last year, was available for use in the 2023 budget. So the next slide. As far as where we're at presently, the recovery continues. You'll note that in 2021 we had reduced our police hours to 245 hours per week. In 2022 we raised those back up to 255. The 2023 budget is projected at our full allotment that we were at prior to the pandemic years, which is 265 hours a week. We've had a significant recovery in our year-end fund balances. We have a few remaining items that have not fully recovered from an economic standpoint, and the best case example of that would be the Penn State impact fee. So those would be the Bryce Jordan Center events. So those have been slower to come back, but 2023 actually looks to be a more normal year for some of those bookings. In 2022, we had 2% cost of living adjustments and a 2% maximum merit increase for employees. There was a slight increase in our healthcare costs in 2022. And we also took measures to secure an additional $3 million in debt to finance a variety of projects, many of which are sidewalk-related type projects. So you take a quick look here at the next slide. The bottom line here is that through all of our various funds and all of our expenditures and our projected expenditures, we're coming out ahead of about $57,000 over what we had originally budgeted in 2022. So that's a very quick recap of 2022, which we're just now finishing up, obviously. But moving on to the proposed 2023 budget, again, as I mentioned at the start, there is no property tax increase. That said, we do need to manipulate or move around some of the millages to get the amount of funds that we need in the right categories, and that's what this chart is representing. You'll note the 2022 millage. It's what we're currently, our current millage is. beginning with the 2.00 mils in the general fund. This year, going into next year, 2023, that is going to be slightly reduced to 1.85 mils, and the difference is going to be allocated to both fire protection and to the library fund in order to make up that minor shortfall that we see in those existing funds going into 2023. And again, our total millage last year, 6.10 mils, and for 2023 proposed at 6.10 mils. So as far as our next slide and the funding sources, you'll see that we raised about $2.78 million, 28.7% of all of our revenue comes from property tax. That's actually a little less than what we receive through EIT, LST type taxes, which is $3.3 million, 34%. And we have debt, intergovernmental transfers, charges for services and fees, and all other sources. We're looking at total funding, total revenue in 2023 of $9.7 million. Next slide. So as far as spending in 2023, one of our larger categories of expenditures are police protection. As I mentioned earlier, we're going back up to the 265 hours. That cost to the township will be $1.66 million. It's 14.5% of the budget. Our debt services essentially stayed the same. It's actually dropped just a bit from previous years. Our capital projects, we anticipate spending about $3.19 million in capital projects next year. We did receive an increase in our COG municipal shares for College Township of about 12%. So with that factored in, our total outlays to COG in 2023 will be $1.46 million. Payroll and benefits will amount to about $2.7 million. That's 23.6% of the budget. And all other spendings, which would be insurance and technology and utilities, etc., about $1.85 million. So we're projecting total spending of $11.45 million. Quickly, just a reference back to the revenue, you'll see that $11.45 million is more than the projected $9.7 million in revenue. And I would posit to council that the vast majority of that is being made up in terms of capital projects, and that's what the new borrowings are designed to address and to cover. So we can go to the next slide. As far as significant capital projects, for 2023, we have about just under $400,000 in equipment replacements. We have almost $500,000 in road projects that we've identified. We have a variety of buildings and grounds projects. That would be this building and other College Township properties, about $370,000. We have about $1.4 million in terms of stormwater and other activity, which also includes next year's turnback work on the remainder of Pike Street. Of course, we all are familiar with the current Pike Street project. This is the PennDOT turnback project that will run from Dale Street to the intersection of Pike and College Avenue. So that section next year will undergo improvements that have been already identified, and that work will be bid and that work will be conducted and completed next year. And that is been estimated to be at $882,000 going into next year. Our own Parks and Rec funding, which excludes the funding that we provide as a township for Center Region Parks and Recs, is about $130,000 in the coming year. So all said and done, on the last slide, The budget document, the proposed budget, will be available online at College Township website, which is www.collegetownship.org. And you can take a look at the budget, you can look at our capital improvement plans, and all of our audits and other reports are found there. So that is a very quick thumbnail, an introduction to the proposed budget. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. If not, it would be appropriate to move forward with a motion from council to to review and approve the proposed budget, and to B, to set a public hearing, which would be December, this is the second meeting in December, is it the 17th? 15th. 15th, December 15th of 2022.
Okay, any questions for staff? Dustin?
Yeah, I just had one, and it just strikes me that maybe I just missed it. Can't remember or not. The cost for DPZ, what was that captured for the Dale Summit area plan?
Yeah, I don't have the line item. We had, it's coming out of the general fund. And if you recall, a bit of a chart that indicated we had set aside $75,000 in 2022 for this, and I think that we are projecting another $150,000 expenditure next year. And then any balance, I think, we're going to be addressing in the 2024 budget.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask a real quick question? I didn't.
Paul?
Yeah, I wasn't at the workshop, unfortunately. That $822,000, those funds are in reserve from PennDOT, correct? So would that reflected in the 9.7 million or not? And I don't mean to put you on the spot with that, but I mean, you see that 3 million, if you take that 3.19 million off the 1175, it actually drops below our revenue, so I wasn't quite sure where the 822 was
Yeah, I mean, the
captured.
822 is clearly part of the capital.
Right, and it's been held in reserve for pending the actual completion of the project.
Yeah, we actually don't have those dollars in hand at the moment. I mean, this is, the turn back is a reimbursement type.
Reimbursement, okay.
Actually, you know what? No, I'm sorry, I stand corrected. The program has been changed. It is now a reimbursement program. We actually have these dollars.
I thought we had the funds in reserve.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Yeah, we actually do have these dollars in hand. So that is part of our.
It's part of the 9.7, so it's included in that. Okay, that was my only question. I apologize for throwing a monkey wrench in there,
Yeah,
but
it's
I wasn't
actually,
able to ask that question.
it's actually
Right.
held in capital reserve, and we will move that, or it will be moved into the construction fund as we move forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
It's there. I'm sorry.
Any other questions for staff? I will just, from a procedural, we need a motion and a second to approve, and then a motion and a second to set the public hearing.
Yes, that's a procedure that we have followed in the past.
Okay?
I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the proposed 2023 College Township budget.
I have a motion. Could I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Could I get a motion to set a public hearing for December 15th to?
So moved.
So quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I jump the gun?
I have a motion.
I'll
Do I have a
second it.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Staff informatives, if there anything that staff wishes to inform us upon.
I do want to bring something, if I may, to the attention of council.
Ooh, this sounds ominous.
Well, It potentially is,
We talking UHA?
to an extent. I do. It was mentioned at our last meeting that UAJA has filed suit against the State College Borough with respect to non-payment of certain fees. And we had a very brief conversation about that. If you take a look at, and I'm not sure about the minutes, but I know that it is mentioned in the executive director's report this month.
It is.
That there have been documents filed in Center County Court, in Commonwealth Court, to advance this issue to a resolution. I just simply think that it would be appropriate for College Township and other Center Region municipalities to do everything in its power to encourage their own individual municipal representatives to the University Area Joint Authority in encouraging that the appropriate parties between both UAJA and the boroughs sit down to actually have a conversation relative to this issue. I'm not convinced at this point in time that there have been the necessary efforts made to completely investigate the issues at hand that may be causing this particular issue. And I think that it would behoove each and every one of the Center Region municipalities to encourage their representatives on the UAJA board to pursue that track, pursue that activity. Because I'm not convinced at this point in time, based on information that I've received, that every effort has been made to have the necessary conversations that may have precluded some of these legal steps. So, one possible, very simple and straightforward approach to doing that is simply authorizing me or the chair or to contact our appointees to UAJA to encourage them to
Seek an amicable resolution.
To seek an amicable resolution to this issue. I am fearful, and I think it's alluded to in the executive director's report and through his comments, that there is potential impact for all UAJA ratepayers at some point and to some degree at some level. And I think that all efforts should be taken to avoid any kind of an unnecessary impact such as that.
I was kind of curious on that about raise rates because their debt service coverage ratio would fall below the 1.1. So any financing that they had was at the rate structure that the borough used to pay. So there's been no degrade of revenues. There's just, they're not getting that extra on there. So I find that odd. I find that odd. Unless their expenses have gone.
Debt service?
Well, the debt service coverage ratio is basically their net income. Is their net income greater than their expenses?
Yeah.
And unless their expenses have gone up significantly. And they built the new borough rate structure into how that's going to be paid. But I just find that hard to believe. It seems like saber rattling, that part, that everybody's gonna pay more because the borough's not paying more. But, I mean, in general, anytime you're end up in court with,
Two public sector entities.
well, in particular, that's comprised of members from each of the whatever.
Well, the reality is that whatever judge ends up with this in Commonwealth Court is likely to send both parties,
To arbitration or something, or
well, to the corner and
work this out.
as a first effort to resolve the issue. I think it just would make some sense if we tried to provide the appropriate encouragement to have this conversation.
Feelings of council.
Seems like a reasonable step.
Sure. Eric?
Yeah. It's embarrassing.
That
Yeah.
hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Financially aside, it's embarrassing.
Correct. Correct. Ms. Stilson?
Go for it.
Okay.
I'll reach out and contact our appointees to UAJA, and likely what I'll do is I'll draft a letter and I'll have council take a look at that before it goes out.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any other staff?
December
informers?
2nd, appreciation dinner, don't forget.
Okay.
Oh, I got that invitation.
Am I allowed?
Yes. of
Okay.
course.
Oh.
You got it in here.
Special guest.
Special guest. We'll have to make special announcements. We'll let him MC them. Congratulations, you are MCing the appreciation dinner. Done. If you're,
Oh, actually, I'm gonna be sick that day.
no, unacceptable. But in a serious note, so we will put it out there again for all of our wonderful ABC folks. If you haven't already gotten your invitation, December 2nd, I think we also did a save the date earlier in the year, so we're looking for
It's already.
good attendance and everything.
It's a very nice card, by the way, the invitation.
So the other thing, because I don't know if you remember earlier this evening, some guy turned in his resignation.
Yeah.
So we have to put our process in order, and with the consensus of council, we'll ask staff to ping our ABCs, and then also what other methods could we utilize to get the word out asking for
Well, I think
applicants.
we would do some print advertising, but also we'll make good use of, the revised, the revamped website as well as push notifications.
push notifications?
And I would encourage all members of council, current members of council, to encourage people that you speak to that have an interest. Not only just in the council position, but we have a slew of openings that we need to fill, both in the IDA as well as the Thompson Woods governance position as well. So there are going to be 5 or 6 different openings that will be available. So we are definitely looking for volunteers.
How about CNET banners?
Sure, I think those are viable.
CNET, the
Oh, the
CNET
proposal
banners?
board? Okay.
Yeah. Any other suggestions from council? Okay.
Looks like we need to hire somebody to monitor these rental housing violations too.
We're kind of on that at the moment.
We got a guy.
Real
And those
quick,
signs,
if-
those political signs,
And those-
that season has
Yeah,
passed.
that's full-time
Real
job.
quick, since it was brought up, Mark, I mean, I think it might be interesting, you may have alluded to this before, but with respect to short-term rentals, what are you finding more and more?
There's a whole gamut. We're finding that, I just actually reached out to someone again today. One of our problems is a lot of our people who are trying to get into compliance are still not properly insured to cover themselves. That's pretty time consuming to try and get people on par with that. We're finding one particular listing platform had multiples of, I haven't used them in 6 years, and I just bought this house 2 years ago and we never rented, and we're tracking back. There's one particular platform has been holding these listings and still showing them and counting them. We're finding a fair amount, and I actually had correspondence with them yesterday, I believe, or the day before. Finally, it's like, this is enough, and started searching around until I found a way to reach out and contact somebody. They did in fact provide me with a good email address and a good phone number that I can pass on to these parties so they can get these listings removed.
Smart. Put it on them.
So, and this is going slower than we anticipated, but they're just different odd things coming in from every direction. I think it was very smart to push these out by the neighborhood and not throw 180 of them out all at once. It would be unmanageable.
Thanks, Mark.
Good deal. Anything else? If not, I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Takak.
Turn it over to me?
Do you, any final?
I mean, I think I tried to say it all in the
And
the
you
letter
can say it
and
on
my
December
comment.
2nd.
And I can say it on December 2nd more eloquently, but thank you all so much. I mean, honestly, when I first came into this, everybody was so welcoming. Hopefully I've earned my stripes over time, and I'm just really proud to have been associated with this team, and we'll try and carry that forward. So thank you for that opportunity. And with that, I will move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. I will second. We're adjourned. Thank you so much.